Amazing winter rescue. How a desperate moose revealed an incredible journey to save her dying baby. Emily Carter stood in her cluttered clinic, staring at the mounting stack of unpaid bills. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. The flickering fluorescent lights above did little to illuminate the despair that shadowed her heart. The family legacy of veterinarian care seemed to grow dimmer with each passing season, especially with the ominous presence of corporate veterinary chains entering the quaint town. She had dedicated her life to this cause, yet as the economy shifted, she found herself drowning in worries. The deeper she sank, the more questions haunted her. Was her commitment to the animals worth this struggle? Was caring for them worth sacrificing her own stability? Just then, her phone rang, piercing her thoughts. It was a frantic call about a moose caught in the relentless winter storm, one that raged like the turmoil within her. A desperate mother needed help for her ailing calf. As she bundled up, she hesitated at the door, the cold air seeping through the cracks almost as cruelly as reality itself. Something inside her shifted. This wasn't just about the moose. It was about her. She felt a kinship with that animal, both of them wading through survival's icy grip, both fueled by fierce love for their young. Emily stepped outside into the howling winds, the snow cascading in thick sheets against her skin. Each step deeper into the wilderness felt like a battle against her own insecurities. What if she couldn't save the calf? The familiar pang of doubt sank its teeth into her resolve. The moose's plight mirrored her clinic's struggles, both fighting for survival against a world that often valued profits over loyalty and love. Memories of her family's dedication flashed through her mind, each one a reminder of what was at stake. A legacy built on compassion clashing with corporate greed. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The snow continued to swirl around her, mirroring the chaos within. Emily stumbled upon the mother moose and her calf, their silhouettes stark against the white backdrop. But as she approached, she noticed something unsettling. The calf was struggling with an illness that was becoming all too familiar. The same neglect and systemic bias that plagued her clinic's patients echoed in the plight of this wildlife family. She felt torn. The moose's life hung in the balance, yet she couldn't ignore the larger issues at play. Should she fight for this one life, risking her own future? As she held her breath, staring into the moose's pleading eyes, her decision loomed like a storm cloud overhead. The fierce wind whipped around her, and chills crawled up her spine. How could she save one love without losing the other? Emily's world had narrowed down to a heartbeat, hers and the moose's. What would she sacrifice to hold on to both the legacy of her family and her duty to those who could not speak? Time stood still, yet her heart raced, caught between two impossibilities, as the biting cold wrapped around her tighter. The storm had just begun. The true tempest was within. Emily felt the pulse of her choice echo in her ears as she stood there. The moose whispered a silent plea that shook her to the core. Instinctively, she dropped to her knees in the snow, assessing the calf's condition with a steady gaze. She could see the frailty in its shivering body, struggling to draw air as if the weight of the world pressed down upon it. The moose mother edged closer, and Emily's heart swelled with compassion that had the power to heal if only she believed. This moment flickered a fire in Emily's spirit. It was more than just about saving a life. It was a chance to confront every shadow of doubt that haunted her. She had spent years honing her craft, treating the forgotten and the wounded, yet here she was faced with the ultimate test. Could her hands bring relief to the anguished? In that split-second decision, she summoned her training, the foundations laid by generations past. Pulling out the medical supplies from her pack, she steadied her breath. Each movement was deliberate. She needed to maintain clarity amidst the swirl of uncertainty. Punctuated by the howling wind, Emily released a deep breath that resonated with newfound resolve. "I won't let you down," she murmured, a vow to both the moose and herself. She began her examination, feeling the chill of the ground beneath her but ignoring it as she focused solely on the calf. Mapping out the symptoms through the torrent of cold and snow, she reached deep into her knowledge base, recalling treatments for hypothermia and pneumonia. Each thought danced within her, and with every decision she made, she wrestled not only with the animal's affliction, but with the reality of her own circumstances back at the clinic. The daunting question loomed over the moment. What if she succeeded? What if this act of bravery inspired a change, not just for the moose, but for her clinic as well? Maybe this was more than a rescue. Perhaps it could become a catalyst for her own personal renaissance. She could find a way to revitalize her passion, to break free from the treacherous grip of despair that threatened to choke her. With the mother moose keeping watch, Emily administered her makeshift treatment. The adrenaline surged through her veins, compelling her to focus. She realized her hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of the responsibility she embraced. In this fierce storm, she was fighting not only for the life of a calf, but also for the very essence of why she had chosen this path. She was reclaiming her identity as a healer, a protector. As the treatment progressed, hesitation was replaced by a quiet, electrifying determination. The calf began to respond, albeit subtly, breath becoming less labored, eyes starting to show glimmers of life. Emily couldn't shake the surge of emotion at seeing this connection manifest. A simple act of care was morphing into a profound realization of her own strength. But just as hope began to blossom, she heard a sound, an ominous crack, followed by the harsh shift of snow underfoot. Emily pivoted to find a pack of wolves emerging through the flurry, drawn by the scent of sickness. Panic surged through her, a visceral need to shelter the moose and her calf. The stakes intensified. She was forced into a confrontation that demanded every ounce of her grit. The moment had come. Hours of self-doubt and decay had led to this stark reality. Could she protect them? Would she fight back against this new threat, sabotaging any lingering doubts she carried? Emily's heart raced as she took a step forward, standing tall against adversity that was rapidly materializing. The storm raged on, propelling her into an unforeseen test that could reshape her destiny. The roiling chaos inside her echoed the tempest outside. Outnumbered yet unyielding, she couldn't back down now, not when lives were at stake. The realization hit her. Survival wasn't only a choice, it was a declaration of who she was meant to be. Just ahead lay the truth that could redefine everything. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the creeping dread consume her once more? All that remained was to face the encroaching storm. Emily locked eyes with the approaching pack of wolves, each one moving with predatory grace, their intent palpable in the biting air. The survival instincts within her screamed for action, her heart racing not just from fear, but from an exhilarating surge of purpose. Faced with the embodiment of nature's merciless cycle, she tightened her grip on the medical supplies, realizing she must choose between her instinct to flee and the mission she had accepted. She took a steadying breath. Every ounce of her training surged through her. This was more than instinct. This was a moment for decision. She had devoted her life to animals, delving into their biology, their needs, all the intimate truths of life on the edges of civilization. But now, facing this threat, the academic knowledge alone felt insufficient. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice raw, amplified by the unforgiving wind. The words came from a primal place within her, a fierce need to protect. As the wolves paused, intrigued, she felt a flicker of control igniting inside her. It was a revelation. She could assert herself in the wild, not just as a healer but as a guardian. Hearts pounding, the mother moose stood resiliently beside her calf. Emily felt their shared resolve, a bond formed through fear and a fierce will to survive. In that moment she was not alone. She was part of something greater, a protective circle against the harsh realities of nature. The first wolf edged forward, its eyes narrowing, and instinct kicked in again. Emily quickly scanned her surroundings, searching for anything that could be used as a distraction. Her eyes fell on a fallen branch, heavy with snow. If she could draw their attention away, perhaps she could give the moose a chance to flee. She hefted the branch, feeling its weight in her hands. It was a small act of defiance, a human gesture against a feral threat. She hurled the branch into the snow, away from the animals, where it snapped loudly, echoing through the quiet chaos. The wolves perked up, curiosity briefly overtaking their hunger as they turned towards the sound. "Go!" she urged the moose, her voice cracking with urgency. The mother seemed to respond, nudging the calf, its fragile legs attempting to stand under the weight of circumstance. Emily knew this was her opportunity. She had to create distance, force the wolves off their trail. Encouraging the moose with gentle hand gestures, she signaled for them to move away from the sound. As they slowly treaded into the deeper snow, the adrenaline coursing through her veins fueled her courage. She could feel their plight intertwining with her own. The calf, once fighting for breath, was now just an aching reminder of resilience. It embodied her fight against despair. With every breath the calf took, Emily felt a reflection of her own struggle, the yearning to reclaim her sense of purpose amid self-doubt and bitterness. Each victorious moment in the treatment pushed her closer to embracing the healer she once was. It stirred within her the realization of what she was truly capable of, but the wolves, drawn by instinct, had not been completely deterred. Just as Emily felt a glimmer of triumph, she heard the snarls and growls renew their focus. The battle was far from over. The distance they had gained could just as easily be lost, and her heart sank at the thought of failure. Gathering her strength, Emily faced the wolves again. "You won't take them!" she shouted defiantly, her body stilling with renewed determination. The storm raged around them, but her resolve had never been clearer. It was no longer just about the moose. It was about defining herself through this act of courage. The moment felt suspended, the tension thick in the air. Would her stand prove enough to protect the vulnerable? Would her fight turn the tide before it was too late? All that remained was her silent vow to protect. And as the wolves shifted, emboldened by their numbers, Emily prepared for a confrontation that would test every ounce of her spirit. The storm within raged alongside the one outside, both demanding a final resolution. This was the eve of an awakening. The battle for survival had begun, and with it, a deeper understanding of her own relentless fight. Would she become the savior she longed to be, or would the wolves of doubt consume her? Only time would tell. The moment stretched, laden with weighty silence as she faced the pack. The guttural growls intensified, an uninvited reminder of the chaos she was standing against. Emily's heart thundered not just in fear, but in resolute purpose. She didn't simply want to survive. She had to protect the innocent creatures who looked to her as their only shield against the relentless wolves. "Focus, Emily," she whispered to herself, grounding her thoughts amid the primal battle instinct swirling within her. The wolves were creatures woven into the fabric of their wild habitat, yet in that moment, she understood that the line between life and death was often drawn by the choices one dared to make. Her mind raced, cataloging survival tactics she had reviewed during her studies. The teachings flickered in her mind. Assert dominance, make oneself appear larger, be bold. Yet here in front of her, it had taken on a new layer of urgency. She needed to outsmart the wolves, not just scare them away. The pack advanced slowly, their movements choreographed yet fluid. Emily steadied herself, the tension crackled in the air, and called upon her voice again. "You're not hunting here," she proclaimed, her tone louder, infused with command. Instead of retreating into fear, she leaned into the revelation that she was capable of projecting authority, even in a world ruled by survival. One wolf hesitated at the sound of her unwavering declaration, eyes locked onto her. In that fleeting encounter, she recognized the clarity in her purpose, not just as a healer, but as a guardian, a protector willing to confront her instincts while simultaneously confronting the insecurities that had plagued her in the past. As the wolves hesitated, curiosity overtook their primal hunger, and Emily seized the moment. She reached for her medical supplies, the contents hinting at solutions, remedies she had once championed. "I have what you need," she exclaimed, improvising her words as she threw a handful of gauze onto the snow, a paper trail in the storm's fury. A bold experiment. The wolves, intrigued by the unexpected offering, paused again. This gamble was unlike any she had faced in her career, a departure from traditional approaches. With each throw of materials into the snowy landscape, she felt her confidence swell. She was not merely trying to survive, she was acting on her conviction, utilizing her professional knowledge to reframe the very nature of the encounter. Glancing back, she saw the mother moose moving farther away with her calf, emboldened by Emily's apparent control over the situation. Her heart soared as she realized that her act of defiance had not only protected them, their slow retreat mirrored her own evolution, her gradual return to the empowered healer she once was. Just as relief was about to settle in, a sharp bark split the air. The dominant alpha of the pack lunged, demonstrating the wolves' instinctive drive toward their prey. Emily's breath hitched, adrenaline surging anew. The psychological battle was far from over. "Turn back," she fired, adopting a commanding posture, every nerve alive with purpose. The wolves lingered, caught between instinct and uncertainty. This was her final moment for growth, to see if courage could reshape how she viewed herself among the untamed elements. Suddenly, a much deeper belief surged within her, the conviction to be a part of the story, not just a passive observer. But would the wolves turn away? Would her conviction hold strong against the primal force of the wild? As the storm howled, swirling around them, Emily felt on the brink of a deeper understanding not just of her role in this wild expanse, but of her connection to life itself. She stood trembling under the weight of a dawning clarity. Facing these wolves was not merely a question of survival, but an embodiment of reclaiming her own strength. Would the pack accept her defiance, or would they push her to the brink, forcing her to confront not just predators, but the fears that lay deeper within? Only the unfolding moments held the answers. The air crackled with intensity as Emily faced the alpha wolf, a biting reminder of her tenuous grasp on the situation. Breathing through the challenge, she felt the fight-or-flight impulse battling within her, a powerful surge urging her to flee, yet a deeper force compelled her to stay and reclaim what had once felt lost, her authority. "I am not afraid of you," she reinforced quietly, her legs solid beneath her, grounding herself in the frozen ground. Each wolf was a mirror reflecting a part of herself she had often neglected, resilient, instinctive, and above all, unyielding. The pack shifted nervously, their instincts sparring against her newfound bravery. Gritting her teeth, Emily's mind raced for strategies, recalling tactical maneuvers she'd practiced. Using their instinct for hierarchy against them might just be the key. If she could project strength and control, she could sway the alpha's attention. Her hands moved to gather more supplies, scattering fabric and gauze further down the snowy expanse as makeshift distractions. "Stay focused," she repeated, this time firmer, the chaos outside now mirroring the tumult inside. The tension wasn't merely about the imminent danger, but also about confronting the layers of fear that had previously held her captive. A flicker of doubt spiked her resolve. What if she miscalculated? What if the next move provoked them rather than steering them away? As the pack circled, anticipation hung heavy, and she gripped the remaining supplies tighter. In that gripping uncertainty, a thought ignited, a realization fueled by her past mistakes and victories. She had the knowledge to mediate rather than confront. She could be a healer still, just not in the way she had initially envisioned. Seizing upon the unexpected clarity, Emily dropped to one knee, her voice taking on a softer tone yet laced with authority. "I'm not your enemy. I'm here to help." The words felt heavy, laden with the weight of truth she had clawed back from the recesses of her mind. Days spent learning to connect with wildlife and years spent treating creatures in peril flickered through her consciousness. It was not solely the mechanics of survival she had to embrace, it was the compassion that guided those mechanics. With tentative movements, she cast aside the remaining gauze, creating a visual trail, a beacon of hope and aid to the hungry pack. The alpha paused, eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and curiosity, as if his primal understanding was challenged by her unabashed vulnerability. The other wolves, sensing the change in their leader, began to hesitate as well. Emily extended her hand, palm up, her heart thundering against her ribcage. The wild dance of uncertainty began to pivot. As more of the wolves sat back onto their haunches, curiosity overtook aggression, and Emily saw this might be a chance to test her theory. What she had always assumed about her practices, the need for authority and aggression to establish safety, now transformed into an understanding that compassion could create bonds even in the wild. But just as the moment shifted, a low growl emanated from behind her, and fear jolted through her body like ice in her veins. A lesser wolf had positioned itself, shifting its muscular form, eyes locked onto Emily with an aggressive yearning. The pack hadn't fully surrendered. Instead, it split, revealing layers of complexity and danger. Would she now face an ambush from within? Her thoughts spiraled as she grasped the realization that the wolves were still uncertain and could easily be swayed by their instincts. Could she still navigate this fraught terrain of strength versus aggression, of fear versus fortitude? With the air growing tense, Emily felt her heart race again, a flicker of desperation mingling with adrenaline. Deep down, she questioned everything she had just learned, realizing that her journey was only beginning. The stakes had dramatically shifted. Her own survival depended not just on her decisions, but also on the unpredictable nature of the wolves around her. Would she withstand the pressure, and could she lead them to new understanding, or was she destined to retreat once more? Before she could process again, another wolf advanced, this time with potential escalation. The path of her self-discovery intertwined irrevocably with their dynamics. What came next would require every ounce of courage she had withheld for so long. Was she truly ready to embrace the role of mediator, or would the wild pull her back into fear? The wind howled as she braced for the unfolding confrontation, revealing a deeper abyss of fear she had yet to face. Would she rise to lead, or would she falter, caught in a storm she couldn't control? Only the next moment could determine her fate. The tension crackled in the air as Emily felt the weight of the moment press against her chest. Gritting her teeth, she willed herself to stay rooted, her gaze steady on the advancing wolf. This was not merely a confrontation with the animal. It was a battle against the remnants of her doubt. A mental war where every past failure echoed louder than the growls surrounding her. Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, to recede into the shadows where safety lay. Yet she knew she could not do that. The last remnants of her old self, the one that had cowered under pressure, began to dissipate. She had trained for this, and while the fear instigated goosebumps along her arms, defiance ignited a fire in her resolve. With her heart thrumming like a drum, Emily took a step forward, instinctively clasping her hands behind her back to prevent any sudden movements that might trigger aggression. The advance couldn't be a sign of weakness, but rather a testament to her growth. "Listen to me," she implored, projecting her voice through the chaos. Her words bore a mix of authority and gentleness. She needed to be both strong and approachable. To her surprise, the advancing wolf paused, its growl morphing into a low whimper that echoed around the assembled pack. A moment of silence enveloped them, each eye trained on Emily, a collective pulse thundering through the air. A realization struck her like a lightning bolt. Her ability to communicate her intention transcended mere words. This was about resonance, a frequency that could sway hearts. Taking a steadying breath, she recalled her training. The countless hours watching animal behavior, deciphering body language, and recognizing the nuances of vulnerability tucked away in each creature's movements. The memories surged through her, reinforcing her belief that even wild instincts could be tempered with understanding. As she knelt, lightly lowering her head in a gesture of submission, Emily felt the heat of judgment wane. The lesser wolf, still posturing, hesitated further. Her heart raced, and with it, an idea ignited. What if she could draw the anger away from herself? Perhaps the restless wolf sought a challenge, a commitment to rank among the pack. Could she leverage that to not only save herself, but incite unity within the group? "Let's settle this together," she stated firmly. And to her amazement, her words seemed to acknowledge the wolf's challenge. She reached for the scattering of torn fabric by her feet, lifting a piece high for all to see. "I offer you this," she said, the fabric flowing like a flag waving in the wind, an invitation instead of a threat. "Together, we can signal to the rest of the world that we are stronger united than divided." Emily's mind was racing as adrenaline surged through her veins. They might not see her as an enemy, but challenging one wrong assumption could lead to chaos. What if they were too wild, too entrenched in their instincts to accept this call for peace? But wasn't it worth testing stronger than fear waters? She threw a glance at the alpha, whose critically assessing eyes bore into her, weighing her readiness to lead. Could the alphas embody a new dynamic, one that embraced collaboration? Could her theory of compassion and understanding lead to harmony rather than dominance? In that charged moment, she pushed forward, spiraling her thoughts toward how to transform her survival struggle into a collective strength experience. The landscape of emotions shifted, and her approach became a catalyst. With her gestures echoing through the snow-laden expanse, Emily absorbed the weight of responsibility. The tension crackled at the edges of her consciousness, and although she was rooted in courage, doubts flared like embers in the night. Would the wolves be willing to follow her lead? As the pack stirred restlessly, mouths slightly agape, she realized the true challenge would not manifest solely in leadership, but also in understanding herself. A roar surged within her, a resonant acknowledgement that this moment was defining. And yet, as she prepared to extend her proposition, another growl reverberated, punctuating the air with a threat. Emily's focus unwavering, she realized with chilling clarity. The lesson she had yet to learn was not just about trust, but about navigating betrayal lurking within. What lurked beneath their frayed alliances? Would unity emerge, or was there a deeper, more treacherous conflict waiting to unravel where she least expected it? Her pulse quickened at the thought, knowledge binding her courage tighter than any fear that had silenced her before. Would she forge ahead into the unknown, or would darkness once again disrupt her pursuit of understanding? The turning point had arrived. Emily's heart raced as she registered the new growl reverberating across the clearing, cutting through the fragile peace she'd begun to weave. It emanated from a larger wolf, one whose presence masked the hesitation that had started to take root in the pack. The bigger wolf positioned itself in a way that radiated authority and aggression, a threat to Emily's fragile proposition of unity. She quickly scanned the pack, each wolf's eyes reflecting uncertainty. Was she genuinely leading them towards collaboration, or simply flinging herself into the jaws of danger? The larger wolf was asserting dominance, its stance a direct challenge to her call for peace. Instinctively, her breath hitched. Memories of her past failures surged back, eclipsing her newfound resolve. Doubt burgeoned within her like an unwelcome shadow, whispering that she wasn't prepared for this battle, for grappling with instincts as primal as survival itself. Yet, another part of her boiled with defiance. If she had come this far, even managing to momentarily stave off the initial aggression, was it not worth taking the next step? Steeling herself, Emily reacted. "I understand your pride, your fear," she called out to the pack. She didn't just mean the larger wolf. Every member of the pack had to recognize her words as connected, not separate. But every moment we allow fear to dictate our decisions, we give away our power. The tension shifted slightly, but the larger wolf remained unmoved. Its growl escalated, perhaps unaware of the sheer audacity of her challenge. Gazing directly into the wolf's eyes felt like daring a storm to strike. Emily clenched her fists, her body tensing under the weight of that primal gaze. Yet rather than retreat, she found herself questioning not just the challenge present, but the weight of her own beliefs. What continually pushed her limits? Was it merely survival? Or was it her longing to emerge as a beacon of influence, fueled by compassion instead of fear? Suddenly, the larger wolf darted forward. Instinct demanded she shift to combat mode, but as it lunged at her, something remarkable happened. Emily held her ground, the vision of who she once was, looming large in her mind, entangled with the woman she was now trying to become. Her training surged through her, compelling her to think outside the usual restrictions. What would she do if she were to redirect rather than challenge? "Stop!" Emily shouted, forcing the word to echo like a thunderclap. To her astonishment, the larger wolf halted mid-stride, eyes locked onto her with a newfound curiosity. In that instant, Emily realized the distinguished line between asserting dominance and inviting a conversation. This wolf, fearing the loss of its authority, could be swayed, but it required a different angle. The language of connection versus conflict. "Let's talk," she declared, lowering her body into a kneel, palms open towards the ground to signify both vulnerability and willingness to engage. The world outside our struggles is vast, but inside this space, we have common ground. No one is beneath or above. We are merely different parts of the same whole. As she spoke, She felt the atmosphere shift again. The lesser wolves, sensing something innate in her calm demeanor, began to draw closer, their bodies relaxing, as they began to abandon their hostility. The larger wolf remained fixed on her, a swirling mix of anger and curiosity dancing within its piercing gaze. Would it realize that Emily's approach, characterized by genuine inquiry rather than combat, could be more powerful than brute force? However, just as hope flickered, the air thickened again with tension. A sharp cry echoed in the distance, an unmistakable sound of distress. Was it another animal in trouble, similar to the situation that had brought her to this wilderness in the first place? Emily's instincts roared back to life, reminding her of her mission, an unexpected plea for help that could potentially reshape the future of her connection with the pack. "We have to move!" she shouted, daring the larger wolf to consider cooperation once again. "Let us confront this together, I ask you." As the pack hesitated between allegiance and allegiance, Emily felt a wave of determination sweep over her. While she had dared to envision a new beginning, was this the true test of her emerging leadership? The resonance of their choices continued to pulse in tandem, dictating her next move as she braced for what lay ahead. The mood was palpable. The pack stood at a crossroad. Would they follow her into unknown territory woven with danger and opportunity, or would the challenge of their instincts reign? The moment stretched, and with a sinking feeling, she realized she was on the precipice, not just of decision but of self-discovery. What was she truly willing to sacrifice to earn their trust? As the distant cries grew nearer, Emily took a deep breath, conviction fueling her next words. This was more than just a fight for solidarity. It was about forging her relationship with her own inner strength, and the journey continued. The echo of the distant cries rattled Emily's core, the urgency of the moment casting aside any hesitation. She focused on the pack, their eyes flickering between her and the looming threat of the larger wolf. With every heartbeat, doubt was wrested from her grasp, replaced by a steely resolve to act. "Follow me," she commanded, not just as a statement, but as an embodied promise. She took a step forward, feeling the weight of every member's gaze, their trust hanging in the balance. Motivated by a new understanding of her influence, she harnessed that power, feeling it pulse between her and the pack, creating an unseen bridge. The larger wolf still stood firm, its muscle-tensed stance insisting on its dominance. But for Emily, warning signs rang loudly. Their hesitation was a fork in the path, a tightrope strung between the instinct of self-preservation and the fragile camaraderie she was attempting to cement. She lifted her chin, daring the larger wolf to push against her leadership. "Your strength can protect more than just one." As if contemplating her words, the larger wolf's growl softened for a moment. Emily seized the opening. "Let's channel that power where it truly matters. If another animal needs our aid, it is our strength combined that can prevail." The atmosphere around them vibrated with conflict. The pack shifted, their bodies huddling together as if drawn by an invisible force. With every second that passed, her previous intentions crystallized into something actionable, the need to direct everyone's focus toward the observed threat. She was not just fighting for leadership, she was fighting for relevance. A sudden rustle broke through the tension, further exacerbating the anxiety that cloaked her. "Listen," Emily said, lowering her voice to a firm but calm tone. "That cry, it could come from a creature in distress or deeper troubles yet to be unveiled. Together, we can rescue whatever it is." Instinctively, as if compelled by a shared understanding, the pack began to move, the smaller wolves edging closer to her side, emboldened by her conviction. Fear began to dissipate, a subtle flicker of unity rising from the scattered doubts within the group. Even the larger wolf, whilst cautious, shifted its posture, a testament to the allure of collective effort. As they moved in the direction of the sound, Emily felt the adrenaline course through her, sharp but invigorating. With every stride, she was reminded of her former self, the lonely woman battling traces of abandonment, now asserting her purpose in a realm she hadn't anticipated. She was not merely a seeker in search of unity, she was spearheading something significant. What if we face more than just the moose, she wondered, reflecting on the myriad possibilities ahead. Would this rescue reveal deeper fractures within or unknown strength? Pondering these questions, she steered her charge, confronting the blurred boundary between hope and fear. Each new sound echoed as both warning and invitation. Their pace quickened, propelled by urgency, when suddenly, the source of the cries came into sight. A struggling moose, its calf trapped in a thick thicket. Panic surged through Emily. The situation was dire. "We need to be cautious. We don't know how it will react." She quickly issued commands, splitting the pack into roles. Some circled to assess from a distance while others ventured closer, prepared to act. A wave of adrenaline surged through her as she realized her leadership had not only shifted their dynamics, but also turned her instincts sharp. As she drew nearer, a sense of responsibility washed over her. How far was she willing to stretch her instincts for a creature so lost? Her doubts resurfaced momentarily. Was this actually a step toward a future built on understanding, or was she courting disaster? The calf fell deeper into the thicket, its panicked cries sharp against the crisp air. Emily inhaled deeply, reminded that the very act of rescuing resonated with her past aspirations. She was not just saving a life, she was facing her own capacity to lead and make decisions under pressure. "Stay together," she instructed, her voice slicing through the roiling emotions. Yet as they moved to execute their collective plan, she couldn't help but sense a looming danger beyond the immediate crisis. Would confronting their circumstances forge bonds, or shatter the fragile trust she was trying to build? The ever-present question besides the moose remained. What fears were buried within the pack that could rear up anew under pressure? The answer would not only define their interactions, but potentially the leader she would become. With determination surging, she took another step forward, her heart on the line. Every choice emerged as a crucible, not just for the pack, but for herself. Would this act of unity lead them into a new dawn, or would it unveil the fractures lurking just beneath the surface? As they reached the moose, time slowed, and the enduring silence threatened to shatter. What awaited them in the face of the next decision? The resolution hung in the air, heavy with tension, ready to unfold. Emily's heart raced as she stepped closer to the entangled calf, the moose's desperate cries reverberating in her mind. It was no longer just a rescue mission, it was a test of her resolve, and the weight of her pack's eyes bore down upon her. Each member's faith was laid bare, trembling against the uncertainty that hung in the air like a storm cloud. She scanned the thicket, each branch a potential threat, her instincts sharpening. The larger wolf had positioned itself behind the group, its presence a reminder of the danger that coursed through the wilderness. Emily couldn't allow fear to stir the pack's primal instincts to flee. "Focus on the calf," she called, her voice steadying. It was a direct command, and it felt like a challenge to herself, to prove that her leadership was effective. The moose, sensing their approach, strained against the invasive entanglement of thorns and shrubbery, a mix of fear and resolve in its own eyes. Emily felt a pang of empathy. Just as she had battled feelings of isolation, this mother fought against the odds to protect her young. It was a powerful connection, one that threaded through their circumstances. "Let's move slowly," she instructed, her mind racing through potential strategies. She could redirect their energy towards a clearer goal, freeing the calf. The pack fanned out methodically around her, their movements deliberate and coordinated. Confidence surged within her. Here was proof that they could unite under her direction. As they intertwined their efforts, Emily noted the body language of the larger wolf. It circled cautiously, its previous aggression tempered into focused determination. Was this a sign of respect, or merely a calculation of strength? Questions whispered through her mind like shadows, eliciting doubts that clawed at her composure. "Now!" she commanded as the pack converged. Together they pushed against the thicket, breaking the branches that held the calf captive. The moose bleated, a high-pitched call that pierced through the tension, pushing Emily to work faster. As she pulled away a stubborn vine, her thoughts danced between triumph and uncertainty. What if they could not save the calf? What if she put her pack in danger in her reckless pursuit? Just as panic threatened to overwhelm her, a sharp shift in the atmosphere occurred. The larger wolf had stepped forward, its powerful body providing cover for the smaller wolves as they liberated the panicked calf. A surge of gratitude coursed through her. United, they could be more than individual players in a merciless game. Suddenly, as they loosened the restraining vines, the mother moose charged toward Emily. Time hung heavy, and Emily froze, expecting an explosion of violence that might shatter her vision of cooperation. Instead, the moose pushed through the emerging gap, but it wasn't aggressive. It was just determined. A loud crack echoed, branch snapping underfoot, and Emily's mind spun. The cry had attracted attention, an echo of danger. The pack's cohesion would be tested further. Could they maintain their collective strength against an unseen threat, or would fear drive them apart just when they had begun to form connections? "Back in formation," Emily shouted. Their previous cautious unity now had to adapt into a defensive posture. As they surrounded the newly freed calf, she caught sight of the larger wolf, now positioned close to her, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. It was an unspoken alliance forming under pressure. "Stay alert," she cautioned, wresting her mind from self-doubt, reminding herself this was her moment. She was not just a leader in name, but in spirit. Every choice along this path ignited self-discovery, a burgeoning recognition of her ability to influence outcomes. The tension thickened. What lurked beyond the trees? A predator? Another threat? Or perhaps something unexpected that could redefine what she had forged so far? The path ahead loomed uncertain and perilous, as clarity came in waves just as fear ebbed and flowed. Her hand clenched in determination. Would the pack rise to meet yet another challenge? Or would their nascent bond shatter into fragments under unforeseen pressure? Each heartbeat brought them closer to resolution, yet further from safety. And just as resolve hardened within her, another sound sliced through the silence, haunting yet distinct, reshaping the reality ahead. What new danger awaited them, and would it unravel everything she had fought to build? The crackling tension in the air exploded, as Emily's certainty was met with a daunting reality. From the shadows emerged an unrestrained bull moose, towering and aggressive, fueled by instinct to protect its territory. Its antlers glimmered ominously in the pale winter light, casting an imposing silhouette against the backdrop of snow. Emily's heart raced. She had just spent every ounce of effort gaining the trust of the situation and the pack, and now another layer of conflict tangled the web she had tried to weave. The bull moose charged forward, eyes blazing with righteous fury. Emily had to decide in an instant. Would she yield to fear or take a stand now that her newfound leadership hung precariously in the balance? "Stand guard," she yelled, positioning herself in front of the calf as the pack instinctively moved to flank her. They formed a protective circle, their bodies a shield against the encroaching threat. It struck her then that this moment was not just about saving the calf or even the emotional growth she sought. It was a crystallizing point where she would stand resolute in her convictions. "Show strength," she ordered, channeling an aggressive energy. The wolves, united in purpose for the first time, lowered their heads, growling low, a display of primeval power equivalent to the bull. The bull moose slowed its advance, hesitation flickering in its eyes, discerning the growing alliance before it. Emily took a breath, courage enveloping her. She was no longer battling herself, she was leading a collective front. "Remember why we are here," she asserted, voice firm yet calm. "This fight isn't just our own. It's for the lives around us. Each step we take is a step toward reclaiming strength through unity." The tension crystallized into action as her determination rippled through the pack. The bull moose hesitated, then snorted, pawing the ground as if configuring its approach. Emily took a step forward, heart thundering, a spark of defiance igniting within. "Together!" she cried out, feeling the pack sink with her energy. They lunged forward in a cohesive unit, wolf eyes lit with purpose, hearts thrumming with newfound clarity. In that defining moment, Emily didn't just protect the calf. She was breaking through her long-held insecurities, embracing a leadership role etched out of courage and compassion. The bull moose, overwhelmed by the spontaneously united front, finally retreated, recognizing its own vulnerability in the face of organized determination. The pack advanced, their growls reverberating through the clearing, emphasizing solidarity. Through the ordeal, an undeniable shift happened. Emily reflected on her journey, realizing that each twist and turn had sewed her into a vessel of resilience. This was more than survival. It had transformed into an emblem of restoration. In stepping into her power, she redefined her identity, not just as a healer of animals, but as a protector of life across the board. With the bull now retreating, the atmosphere began to change. As the threat subsided, Emily turned her gaze towards the rescued calf. It stood gingerly, the mother moose edging closer, her eyes reflecting profound relief. The connection upon viewing this family rekindled something deep within her, a peace that whispered. She may not have altered the law of the wilderness, but she had forged an alliance built on respect. "Let's lead them to safety," she motioned, directing the pack toward a clear route away from danger. Together, they orchestrated a safe passage, flanking the moose and her calf as they moved through the dense thicket. All her instincts, her learning, her hardships had melded into this pivotal moment, teaching her that true leadership lies encompassing empathy and fortitude. Once they reached a clearing, with the sun breaking through the clouds casting warmth upon their figures, Emily felt an exhilarating sense of achievement wash over her. She was no longer the figure shackled by insecurity, but a beacon of resilience. As the mother and calf disappeared into the distant snow-draped forest, she turned to the wolves, who now stood with a profound understanding of their shifted dynamics. They were bound by the trust forged in that day's chaos. "Together we've conquered something great," she declared, and in that moment, everyone felt the significance of their actions. It affirmed her growth, not simply triumph in the wilderness, but as a nurturer, a protector, and a leader who could bridge the gap between fear and unity. What once were shadows of doubt had transformed into a powerful luminosity guiding them ahead. For Emily, this was not merely a moment. It was the foundation of her future, the launchpad from which she would elevate her mission at her clinic and beyond. Emily had not just saved lives today, she had transcended the constraints of her past to awaken the indomitable spirit of the healer she was always meant to be. With solid confidence and established competence, she would reclaim her legacy, redefining veterinary care not just as a profession, but as a profound calling. Now was the time for a new beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness the next exclusive emotional stories that will continue this journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support creators committed to sharing these transformative experiences. Comment below your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion. Share instantly this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring ending. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support for these life-changing narratives.